Today's topic is about, are you planning correctly? Have you picked the right model of childcare? So, there are probably 100 different models of child-focused businesses, from having a summer camp to running a program in your home to a large franchise or series of franchise locations, a single, I own this one center, chains, franchises, martial arts studios, dance studios. I could keep going on and on. All of these, in some way, are childcare. Private kindergartens, depending on your state, may be considered childcare. And today's guest is Neil, who helps people buy and sell childcare centers. And part of what he does is helps people evaluate the finances of that program.
So my name is Neil Agrawal, and I am with Preschool Exchange. We have been in business since 2007, and since then, we have helped about 220 centers being sold. And in the process, like Carrie said, we help do valuations. And the first thing that comes as a part of our process is, what is my business worth? And if there are no profits, then it's hard to come up with a valuation. What we are going to cover today is, firstly, what is profit? And then second, why do we need to have a profit? Different components of profit. As owners, what are the different roles and hats you play in your day-to-day operations? And then we are going to touch upon financial monitoring, organization setup, and then I'm going to share some best practices and industry ratios with you. So I pulled up two definitions of profit. Very important thing to notice in terms of profit is the first definition. It is a financial gain, and especially the difference between the amount earned and the amount spent in buying, operating, or producing something. So in our case, it is going to be the difference between the amount earned and the amount spent in operating a childcare center. And then when we look at our profit and loss analysis, we are now looking at the definition in terms of how much the business makes, the money the business makes after subtracting its expenses from income, right? So money a business makes, income, and expenses. So these are our keywords that we'll be focusing on today. So we already talked about the fact that when owners or anybody who approaches us in terms of what is my center worth, and the first question is, what is your profit or what is your cash flow? Profit is your return on investment. You are investing your hard-earned money and your time into the business. You are looking to reinvest in your school. COVID happened, many owners had cash flow issues during COVID, and there was a short-term shutdown. So if you have that money, you could reinvest and wait for that time period to get over and then be profitable again. Provide better services, pay better to staff. Your staffing is the key component of your childcare center. You are able to pay them better if you are running a profitable school. Make improvements to the property. Your center should look like it is made for today's environment. Many owners, again, sometimes they don't have the money or the inclination to put improvements back into the property. And then the school shows as if it was a 15-year, 20-year-old facility. Well, parents are looking for a newer, at least updated facilities. So changing your flooring, painting the classrooms and the building outside and inside makes a lot of difference in the impression that it puts in front of the parents. So making improvements to the property can happen once you have that cash flow coming to you. And I know Carrie talks about tools, technology, and how it is important. If you are profitable, you are able to put money into your technology and make your schools be better. And then, of course, cash flow reserves. You are able to have cash reserves to help with any other situation that you have not thought of. Now we are going into the components of the profit, revenue and expenses. So these are the two main components of profit. Let's talk about the revenue components, and we are going to spend a little time on this. What I have seen, successful owners always have a revenue focus, not a cost focus, a revenue focus. What that means is, how are you increasing revenue in your school? The first component is the most important component is the tuition income. The tuition income comes from enrollment and the fee that you charge for your parents. The enrollment is the number one criteria. You should be more than 80% enrolled of whatever your capacity is. All the ratios that I will be talking about towards the end, all the ratios, industry standards come into the picture when you have an enrollment which is more than 80%. If you are below 80% enrolled, the ratios do not make sense. Your payroll will start getting higher. You are looking at doing discounts and different things to help that. But you need, for a healthy school, you need your enrollment to be at least 80% and above. The second component of tuition income was the tuition structure or the fee structure. I know many owners who come to me and say, we are the highest tuition in our area. And that really makes me feel good about the center. And most of these centers have a waiting list. So when you are coming up with your tuition structure, your tuition structure needs to be aligned to your costs. So if you are offering a very high-end program, your tuition needs to be accommodative of that factor. You cannot be the lowest and always looking at your competition, but trying to provide a very high-end program. Then your ratios, again, will not make sense. Revenue bleeders. Um, this is one thing that comes in when we are talking about the tuition income. Those are your discounts, your free tuition, or your non-paying parents. So you need to have a policy where if somebody has not paid, again, every situation is different, but the best I've heard is you don't pay, you don't stay. If you don't have those kind of strong policies, suddenly at the end of the year, you will see that, oh my goodness, I have lost almost a big chunk of money from all these parents who are not paying regularly. The tuition structure is a whole different thing, how you value yourself. And I just had a session today where we were talking about how if you only talk about the pricing, then that is the impression you are creating in front of your parents. But if you talk about the value proposition, they will understand why you are charging more and what value they are getting. So the price becomes a component of value rather than a starting point for them. And then food program, if you are able to get into the food program, I think that is a great source of revenue. Let's talk about subsidy. So government programs provide subsidy. If your center is a full private pay center, in Texas, we are seeing that it still makes sense to just enroll in subsidy and become a Texas Rising Star. So every state has a different Rising Star program. I would encourage you to still become a Rising Star. And if you do, try to get the highest level. So the same student coming in a subsidy program center gets an X amount. If they are Rising Star 2 level, they get 20% more. If they are 3-star, they get 30% more. And if they are 4-star, they almost get 40% more. Same student, same center, same enrollment, your revenue just became 40% higher than what you were actually getting. Also, if you are enrolled in Rising Stars or any of these programs, there are grants that come your way. Right now, I know that the grants which are coming, they are still giving it out, and they are more for teacher training program, conferences, and even equipment. So again, these are just few different ways in which you can increase your revenues. One last thing I would say is to maximize the use of the real estate. And if you are not using your real estate on weekends, it would be a thought to rent it out to churches, to basketball teams, to special programs on Saturdays or Sundays. I know of some schools which are able to make about $2,000 to $4,000 a month in which you could do that extra revenue. Um, let's go to the expense component. Payroll should be less than 50% of your gross revenue. And I know after COVID, it has been tough, but I still see centers which have payroll at around 40 to 43%. Now, the payroll should include all payroll taxes, any director salaries, any management salaries, as well as all the staff salaries. So some people get away with saying, "Oh, my management salaries are different, but my payroll is less than 50%." No, the total payroll, including payroll taxes, should be less than 50%. Many owners I meet, their payroll rates are higher, but they are able to schedule their teachers in a way that they are still able to control the payroll below 50% of their gross revenue. And then the second is the rent/mortgage. This should be less than 20% of your gross revenue. And we will look at the slide at the end where I'm talking about the industry standards. But whenever your rent or mortgage is creeping up about 20% of your gross revenue, that will be a marker to rethink and see what you are doing wrong. If you are looking to expand, this is one of the best parameters to see if it makes sense for you to get into a new project or stay away from that. That is when you calculate your projections, and the rent or the mortgage is more than 20% of the project you are trying to get. Property taxes. So Texas just passed, and many counties as well as cities are adopting this. They have certain criterias, but I know Florida does not have property taxes for childcare centers. Texas has come up with this last year, and many centers are taking advantage of that. Insurance and all those costs have gone up. Totally agree with that. But again, as much as possible, you can work with your insurance agents to see if you can change your criteria just a little bit so that the insurance can come down a little. But these are our main components of expenses. Think of the business as a separate entity. It is paying a salary to you as the director. If you are the director, it needs to pay you returns as a business owner. And then if you are a building owner, the business needs to give you a rental income. So there are three sources of income that you should be getting if you are a business owner who owns the building and you are the director.
Can you talk a little bit about this from the perspective of a home-based program? So a registered or licensed home, the smaller program.
Absolutely. So if you are a registered home or a licensed home center, all those things still apply. You should be at 80%. So if you are licensed for 12, you need to have 10 students enrolled. That is when you are actually showing that you are ready for that next step and you are actually utilizing your resources fully. Okay, now if you are giving a part of your building, your front living area, a part of your kitchen, figure out a small rental component that your business again needs to pay you. And now you are the owner and the director. Be on a W-2 for your business to pay you a salary, and then you need to make some profit as a business owner. Even if you are a home-based owner, you need to actually have an LLC and not do a Schedule C. So we'll talk about that in just a minute as well. So let's talk about financial monitoring. So the first question is, how frequently do you even look at your financials? You need to know exactly what your financials look like. And if you don't have visibility into that, you need to start working on that. Most national operators, franchisors, and franchisee models I've seen, they are ready on a weekly basis. So 1 week out, their financials are ready for them to look at. And they monitor what their payroll has been, what their revenues are on a weekly basis. Um, Many owners are not equipped on the financial side, right? You are teachers, you are a director, your passion is to teach. Well, get a good CPA on board, and they need to make sure that you work in cohesive to get your financials ready very, very timely manner.
So if they're still in the I'm planning part of this, what do they need to work on with that CPA or other financial?
You better have done your projections already in place on what your tuition structure is going to be, what were you expecting in terms of your roll up enrollment, and what your expenses would look like. So now you can go in on a weekly basis or on a bi-weekly basis. Please, bi-weekly basis, not monthly, to see where you are in comparison with what your projections were, and keep working with your CPA to make sure that you are in line. And if you are falling a little bit behind on something, then you know where to look for. So if you know your problem, you know what to fix. If you do not know the problem, you do not know what to fix. I will share one example with you. I just worked with an owner. She was not paying attention to her financials at all. She found so many different areas where money was just flowing out. There was no accountability. So once she kind of figured it out, now she is working on putting everything together. So again, look at your financials closely. You need to make year to year comparison. You also need to compare month to month. What that means is, how is your March 2024 and 2025 comparing with each other? Are you lagging behind? Are you doing better? You better be doing better. But at least when you are doing a comparison, you kind of know that, okay, I think I am good, but now I have results which show that I'm really doing good, or maybe I'm lagging behind. And this happens to me all the time when people think that they are doing great, but then when they do a comparison, they figure out that, oh my goodness, last year, January through March, I did $200,000 in revenue. This year, I am lagging behind $30,000. I thought I was doing okay. No, you are not. So that is a great way to kind of look at your financials on a regular basis. Okay, let's talk about organization setup as well. Um, Schedule Cs. So this is more important for the home-based centers. So Schedule C is when you are a non-entity. You have not created an entity. Basically, it's a personal owned organization, sole proprietor. You are basically taking your revenues and your expenses on your personal tax returns. Everything is owned by you individually. You are running a business. A parent that comes in, an assistant that comes in, if somebody gets hurt, they can come after you personally. You need to have a liability insurance, right? And you need to have yourself on a LLC or an organization set up. What it also helps is when you are looking to expand. We have worked with many home-based centers to get them into licensed centers. When they have had an LLC set up and when they are able to show their P&Ls and a good history, that is super organized in front of a lender or even a landlord when you are going to get into your next step, which is a fully licensed center. The next would be the single entity and the two entities. So many owners, it's very simple to just have one organization in place for your business and for your real estate if you own the real estate as well. While this is okay, ideally, if you own your real estate and you are running your center from there, the most recommended way to do that is having a property company and an operating company. So your propco, we call it propco, owns the real estate, and the opco is the operating company, which actually owns the business. And between propco and opco, you are actually having a lease agreement. So operating company pays a rental to the property company on a monthly basis. And you determine the, I would say, a fair market rent, not your property taxes, not your mortgage, but a fair market rent. So this ties us back to what we were talking about before, that if you own your real estate and your business needs to keep paying rent to you as the property owner. These are the industry standards and the best practices that we have seen working in the industry for the last, since 2007. Enrollment should be above 80% of your capacity. Payroll costs should be less than 50% of the gross revenue. Rent/mortgage costs should be less than 20% of the gross revenue, and your net profit or margins should be greater than 15% of the gross revenue.